Zamani Millar. All right.
So I'm just going to jump right into my presentation, and I'm going to start off by asking you a question. So the question I have for you is a question that I hope you've all asked yourself at least once in your lifetime. And this question is, if girls could rule the world, what kind of world would this be? I'll repeat it. If girls could rule the world, what kind of world would it be? So by a show of hands, how many people have ever asked themselves this question before? I have. Well, I'm glad many of you have asked yourself this question before, because the message I want to share with you this afternoon is about how girls can change the world. And that's why I've titled my presentation, My Mother, My Sister, and Me, Gender Justice and Changing the World for Girls. So over the next 15 minutes, I hope to do what the world's best speech writers say is very critical for any good keynote speaker to do, and that is to educate, motivate, and celebrate your audience. So I plan to do just that. I hope to educate by sharing important facts and statistics about girls so that we can know why it's important to change the world and make it better for girls. As for motivate, I hope to motivate you by sharing a few stories from my mother, my sister, and myself. And I hope these stories inspire and motivate you all in some small way. I hope to motivate you by sharing stories that draw on the conference theme, which is courage, confidence, and creativity. And my grandmother always used to say that charity begins at home. And sometimes we don't have to look any further than our own homes to find a good role model. So I hope to motivate you by sharing stories from 2 of my role models and 3 of my favorite girls in the world. That happens to be my sister, my mother, and myself. So, as for celebrate, after I talk about the things that will educate and hopefully motivate you, I want to share my music with you, which is my way to celebrate you. Just because we're girls. Besides, music is always a good way to end things on a high note. I know, that was really cheesy. It's okay. You can laugh at me, you don't have to laugh with me. So going back to my question, if girls could rule the world, what kind of world would this be? What kind of world do we want to see? And how can any one of us as one person change the world? Another way to ask this question is to say, how can we as individuals make a difference and have a positive impact on the life of girls? But before we get into that, I have another question, which is, why do we need to change the lives of girls in the first place? I think it's safe to say that for most of us here today, we all have a place to live, food to eat, clothes on our backs, schools we can attend for free, hospitals we can go to for free if we're sick, malls we can shop in, and probably all of us have cell phones, a television, a family car, and many other luxuries. Well, I'm sure that since arriving here this morning, you've heard a lot of interesting facts about the social and economic lives of girls all around the world. But if you haven't, or have somehow missed that, I want to highlight some important facts about the lives of girls around the world, because not all girls are as safe, as fortunate, or as blessed as we are. And I'm sure that there are some girls in this room who are aware of this through their own personal experience. I should point out that these facts I'm going to share are not meant to scare any of you or paint a picture of like doom and gloom, but these facts are meant to educate all of us as to why it's important to change the world and make it better for girls. So here's some of the facts that I've selected to share about girls around the world. Over 500 million adolescent girls and young women live in the developing world. 21% of girls aged 15 to 19 are already married. Almost 50% of girls between 15 and 19 years old believe that a husband is justified in physically abusing his wife under certain circumstances. 100,000 girls are child soldiers. In sub-Saharan Africa, 33% of girls between 15 and 24 years old can't read or write. 12 million girls in sub-Saharan Africa live on less than $1 a day. 27% of girls living in the least developed countries are involved in child labor. So here are a couple of facts just about girls in Canada now. So a Canadian report revealed that as girls enter adolescence from ages 9 to 13, their confidence declines sharply, and they experience higher rates of depression. In grade 6, 36% of girls say they are self-confident, but by grade 10, this has fallen to 14%. In grade 6, boys and girls report the same levels of depression. About 25% says they feel depressed at least once a week. However, by grade 10, rates of depression in girls have jumped, and they are 3 times more likely than boys to be depressed. Now I have a few facts about Aboriginal girls and women. Here in Canada, in 2013, the RCMP launched an investigation into the problem of missing and murdered Aboriginal women in Canada. The report revealed that from 1980 to 2012, a total of 1,181 Aboriginal women were murdered or were considered missing. Now here's a few facts about Black girls in America. 67% of African American girls reported being touched or grabbed or pinched in a way that they were not comfortable with, compared to 56% of white girls and 28% of African American girls reported being forced to kiss someone, compared to 15% of white girls. So you can see the balance in the statistics. But I have some good news about girls, because like I said, I don't want to scare you or paint a picture of doom and gloom. But a girl is much more likely to go to school if she lives in a city. In developing countries, school attendance for girls from 10 to 14 is 18% higher in urban than rural areas. An economically independent young woman has more power in the home to make decisions that affect the health and education of family members. If girls could start successful businesses or get hot jobs with decent pay, both nations and households would experience economic growth. Somehow, after all this adversity, girls have a longer life expectancy than boys, and we live almost 10% longer as a group, and I can say I'm very happy about that. So I hope you all agree with me that these facts answer the question of why we need to change the lives of girls around the world. My conclusion about these facts is that we need to change the lives of girls so that we have gender justice. We all need to make it our mission to do something toward achieving the rights for girls to have education, healthcare, personal safety, freedom from abuse, poverty, and the right to personal and political freedom. Girls are the mothers of the next generation. Give a girl the skills and opportunities she needs in life as a woman, and she will pass them on to her children. So now I'm moving on to the section where I'm going to motivate you. And now that we have these statistics, which reveal the marginalized conditions of girls, this leads us to the more important question of how can we as individuals make a difference and have a positive impact on the lives of girls. I think the answer to this question lies in the theme of this conference, which is, as individuals, we need to be confident, courageous, and creative. I want to share with you some examples of people in my life who've shown confidence and courage in their stance for gender justice. My mother is my example of confidence. My mother is a 6th generation Black Nova Scotian. Her family came to Nova Scotia, our family, I could say, in the 1780s, and in the early 1800s as Black loyalists and Black refugees who fought in the war in the United States in order to earn their freedom from slavery. My mother grew up in a small Black community in Dartmouth called Lake Loon. And although my mother is not that old, she has told me that when she was growing up, most families in her community did not have indoor bathrooms or running water. My mother went to a segregated school until grade 4. When her school was closed in the late 1960s, she had to walk to the neighboring white community to attend school where Black students were not welcome. My mother recalls having to endure with racial slurs, fist fights, physical punishment from white teachers, name calling from white parents and white teachers who believed that Black students were not as capable as their white counterparts. Despite this dehumanizing treatment, my mother had the confidence to overcome these insults. She focused on her academics, and when in high school, she became a peer tutor. She joined sports teams and the public speaking club as well. She started an African cultural group for Black students and became the president of her high school student council in grade 12. My mother went to university and completed degrees in business and education, and after graduating, my mother and her sister founded a feminist singing group called For the Moment that dedicated themselves to educating their audiences about women's rights, racism, anti-poverty, and human rights. Along her journey, my mother had the opportunity to sing for the Pope, Bishop Desmond Tutu of South Africa. She also met Nelson Mandela and performed with the famous poet Maya Angelou. She took her message of gender justice and women's rights to music festivals in Europe, in the Caribbean, in the US, as well as across Canada. The reason I'm telling you this is because sometimes we believe we cannot make a difference in the lives of girls and women, but we actually can if we have the confidence to try. We don't have to be famous or rich to make a difference sometimes. All it takes is belief in your self-worth and the desire to help others. My mother's humble beginnings and the adversity she faced as a child because of racism has been a huge motivator for me. I hope her journey of confidence will motivate you. And next, my next example is my sister. I have an older sister, her name is Nzinga. She's named after a warrior queen, Queen Nzinga, who lived in Angola, Africa in the late 1500s and early 1600s. The name Nzinga actually means she has courage. Queen Nzinga was famous for defeating the Portuguese army who were trying to colonize her country. I think my sister has captured the spirit of Queen Nzinga in her volunteer and career life. She has never been afraid of challenges, and she's always stands up for the rights of others. Even though we attended a school where there were only a few Black students, that didn't stop my sister from becoming a leader and trailblazer. Whether it was lead roles in the school plays, going for gold in the music festival, or being on the debate team, she always displayed courage. I remember she entered a school essay contest. She chose to write her essay on conflict diamonds in Africa. She wanted to teach her classmates about the fact that diamond rings we purchase in Canada sometimes come from mines that could use child labor, and that diamonds are sometimes traded for guns to fight wars that kill innocent women and children. And Nzinga wasn't sure if this topic would be embraced by the audience and contest judges, but she being the courageous person she is, she went for it anyway. To her surprise, she won first place. And we're all very proud of the results because Nzinga was in junior high at the time, and she had to compete against other high school students. Many years later, my sister completed degrees in development studies and journalism. We should have seen that coming. She also volunteers a great deal of time to mentor young girls. She's even started her own communications company that helps community and women's groups to get their messaging out. And she named it Courage Communications, which I'm sure was expected. So once again, I'm sharing an example of how ordinary people can make a large difference in the lives of women and girls. My sister does this because she believes in making a difference through personal excellence. She doesn't do this for her resume or recognition. However, I am pleased to say that on March 25th, my sister will be receiving the Young Woman of Excellence Award from the Progress Women's Club of Canada for her contributions to advancing the lives of women. I am very proud of her. So as I've shared, my mother is my example of confidence, and my sister is my example of courage. But when it comes to me, I guess there's only one C left, and that is creativity. And I think the word creativity sums me up pretty well. I like to draw, I paint, I write songs, I produce music, I sing, and I perform. And like my mother and my sister, I've made a habit of using creativity, which is my C word, to try to make a difference in the world, and especially when it comes to girls. I sing at International Women's Day events, and I've sung at other conferences for girls. Something you should know about us creative types is that we don't really like to talk about ourselves too much, and we prefer to show our creative projects as opposed to talk about them. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm very excited about what I'm going to do next, and I'm going to debut for the first time in Canada a music video that I made. Sorry, I lost my place. So I'm going to debut a music video that I filmed with my family when I went to visit Ghana, Africa in November of 2018. We shot it on our iPhones, and I hope you enjoy it. But I'm going to say a little bit about the song. The song is called Outside. I wrote this song when I was in grade 10. The theme of the song is about my personal journey. I attended an all-girls private school in elementary and junior high. When I decided to go to a public high school at Citadel High, I was feeling very nervous and even intimidated for a lot of reasons. First, I'd never gone to a school where there were boys before since grade 6. I'd never attended a school that large before, and high school just seemed like a big scary place, and it made me feel like I was being pushed to the outside. Then I began to realize that many students feel like they're on the outside of school life, and in general because of their age, their race, their gender, sexual identity, their accent, or how they feel about their body, and so on. So I wrote this song to capture that theme. The other big reason I'm excited to show this video is, like I mentioned, it's never been played before in Canada. So you guys will be the first audience to see it, and I'm honored to share this with you. So this is called Outside.
If you could read my mind, you would question everything that's in there. If you could take some time away from your paradise, just give it some thought for a minute, and maybe you'll understand how I'm really feeling. 'Cause I know I'm not alone when I say I'm on the outside, but no one ever seems to care. I'm on the outside, 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 outside. Maybe it's way too late to run into my secret hiding place, just so I can get away, away from your paradise. Just give it some thought for a minute, and maybe you'll understand how I'm really feeling. 'Cause I know I'm not alone when I say, oh, I'm on the outside, outside, when no one ever seems to care. I'm on the outside, outside, you never really see me there. I'm on the outside, 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 outside. I'm on the outside, 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 outside. I'm on the outside, the outside. Open your eyes. I'm on the outside. Open your eyes. I'm on the outside, outside. And no one ever seems to care. I'm on the outside, outside. You never really see me there. You never really see me. I'm on the outside, outside, outside. I'm on the outside, outside, outside. I'm on the outside. I'm on the outside, outside, outside. Outside, outside, outside. I'm on the
Thank you. Whew. I was a little nervous because nobody had ever seen it before. But before I exit the stage, I want to thank everyone who had a hand in me being here this afternoon. I was nervous because this is my first time doing public speaking presentation. But I do like to challenge myself and try new things, especially if it can impact girls in a positive way. So I also wanted to keep my promise before I leave the stage, and I promised that I would celebrate you. So I'm gonna do this by ending with a live performance. And this song is a song that I wrote last year for a film. And the film was about two best friends, but one of them has a no good boyfriend. And he was holding her back and he was treating her badly. So her friend was trying to confront her about this. And her friend's like her voice of reason, and I wrote the song from the perspective of the friend. So before I cue the song, I want to leave you with my main message, which is I hope that you know that just like my mother and my sister and myself, you can do your part for gender justice and changing the world for girls by tapping into your confidence, your courage, and your creativity. So, let me do the song. And feel free to dance if you want to. I don't really know what you see in him. He's got an ego that will way past 10.
won't listen because I'm your best friend. And you pushes your buttons like no one else can. But trust me when I say I won't be leading you astray. But no matter what I say, you wanna love him anyway. I don't wanna see you cry over that boy one more time. Anything I need to know is what's so great about him. Hey, what's so great about him? Yeah, I'm failing to see why we disagree, but I'm gonna be real. What's so great about him? I've told you so many times. Don't mean to brag, but I'm always right. When your sweet tears and good eyes, I know he's back. Gotta cut those ties. But trust me when I say I won't be leading you astray. And no matter what I say, you gon' love him anyway. I don't wanna see you cry over that word one more time. Anything I need to know is what's so great about him. Hey, hey, hey. Tell me what's so great about him. Yeah, I'm failing to see why we disagree, but I'm gonna be real. What's so great about him? Yeah, oh, yeah. I'm failing to see why we disagree, but I'm gonna be real. What's so great about him? Tell me what's so great about him. I'm failing to see why we disagree, but I'm gonna be real. What's so great about him? Yeah. Oh, so great, what's so great, what's so great, so great, so great, so great, what's so great, so great, so great. Come and tell me what's so great. Come and tell me what's so great. Come and tell me what's so great. Come on and tell me what's so great. Thank you so much. We hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Zamani Millar. Thank you so much for that and for giving us so much to think about and, more importantly, do.